What wins a woman's heart isn't what you do for her, but what you represent when you have nothing to prove. That's an uncomfortable truth many men refuse to accept. They believe that the more effort, gestures, or sacrifices they make, the more valuable they'll be in a woman's eyes. But in reality, it's the opposite. The harder you try to earn her approval, the more invisible you become. Because a woman doesn't connect with the man who gives everything, but with the one who doesn't lose himself trying to please her. And that contrast between what you give and what you project is what separates the men who spark attraction from those who only inspire gratitude. Every man has felt that frustration, doing everything right, being present, supportive, and attentive, yet still noticing her pulling away or growing distant for no apparent reason. It's a blow to the ego that hurts, but it carries a deep lesson. Affection can't be bargained through effort, and a woman's loyalty doesn't respond to sacrifice. It responds to the value and certainty you project. When a woman senses that your world revolves around her, she stops seeing you as a strong option. But when she feels you're a grounded man, with direction, boundaries, and inner peace, her attraction multiplies. And in this video, you'll understand why. If this is your first time here, my name is Celia. I help men understand female psychology through maturity, respect, and self-confidence. Here, we talk about ethical attraction, emotional leadership, and healthy relationships. No tricks or games. Stay until the end, because I'm going to share the 5 truths that will completely change the way you see female loyalty. Let's begin. For years, we were taught that if a man tried hard enough, a woman would eventually value him. That simply being there, giving, and always being willing was enough. And while that logic sounds noble, it's actually an emotional trap that only drains you. Because when your effort is driven by fear of loss, you're not giving from abundance, you're giving from lack. She doesn't perceive your effort as love, but as need. And in the feminine language, need never translates into attraction. Most men don't understand this because they confuse recognition with love. They think that if she thanks them or compliments them, it means connection. But gratitude isn't desire. You can be the man who helps her the most, who listens, who's always there for her, and still not be the man who moves her inside. Because desire doesn't come from what you do, but from what you project while doing it. If your energy says, "I need you to notice me," she feels it. And even if she doesn't say it, she'll start to pull away, because no one feels drawn to someone seeking validation. The most common mistake is believing that unconditional giving creates unconditional love. But what really happens is that the more you give without balance, the less mysterious you become. You turn predictable, safe, and therefore boring. Excessive effort kills tension, that spark that sustains attraction. And when the tension disappears, so does desire. A man who gives everything without asking for anything may seem noble, but unconsciously, he signals that he has no options, that he doesn't value himself enough to choose who deserves his time. So far, we've seen that the problem isn't giving, but the place it comes from. If you give to earn approval, you lose power. If you give from your center, expecting nothing, you project confidence. A woman can instantly tell the difference between a man who acts out of need and one who acts out of choice. The first seeks acceptance, the second already accepts himself, and that difference changes everything. When you give from your center, she perceives your generosity as a reflection of your strength, not your emptiness. When you give from need, she senses your effort as a silent cry of, "Please notice me." And nothing kills attraction faster than that. Giving only has value when it comes from control, not anxiety. That's why effort doesn't conquer, it exhausts. Because what truly wins a woman over isn't what you do for her, but who you are while you do it. A man who keeps his direction, who gives without losing his frame, becomes magnetic. But the one who forgets himself to please her becomes invisible. The key isn't how much you do, but how much you respect yourself while doing it. Understanding this is the first step to freeing yourself from the need for approval. It's stopping the habit of measuring your worth by a woman's response. Because when a man stands with dignity, expecting nothing in return, He awakens something far deeper than gratitude. He awakens respect. And respect, unlike effort, is the foundation of lasting attraction. Now think about how many times in your life you gave more than you should have, hoping it would guarantee love. That's where transformation begins, when you realize that your worth can't be traded for sacrifice. Only when you stop giving to be seen will you truly be seen. And from that point on, you'll begin to understand what truly sustains female loyalty. A woman can feel attracted to many men throughout her life, but she only stays loyal to the one who gives her a sense of certainty. And that certainty doesn't come from money, gifts, or promises. It comes from a man's inner frame, from his consistency, from his ability to align what he says with what he does. What truly awakens feminine loyalty is emotional stability. She doesn't attach herself to what a man offers, but to what she feels when she's near him. When a woman senses direction, calm, and self-control in you, her emotional system relaxes. That feeling of emotional safety is what creates positive attachment, not your external efforts. On the other hand, when she senses confusion, indecision, or the need for her approval, her mind begins to doubt. And a woman who doubts doesn't stay. She might feel affection or hold on to memories, but she won't cling to someone who lacks inner control. Loyalty isn't a vow. It's a natural response to emotional leadership. We've already seen that effort without a strong frame leads to exhaustion. Now, let's go deeper. Coherence is the highest form of attraction. A woman trusts what a man projects when his words and actions don't conflict. Not because he's perfect, but because he's consistent in his integrity. An emotionally consistent man doesn't create anxiety, he inspires respect. And where there's respect, there's lasting desire. The biggest mistake many men make is thinking women want constant excitement. Yes, they enjoy intensity, but not instability. They want to feel intensity within a structure. And that structure is built through habits, boundaries, and direction. A woman doesn't fall in love with what you do, but with what you represent. Someone who doesn't waver under emotion, who doesn't beg for attention, and who doesn't lose his center even in conflict. That presence is what inspires her deepest loyalty. That's why a man must guard his frame more than his words. You can tell her you love her, but if your doubts make her feel insecure, your words lose weight. On the other hand, if you stay calm even when she tests your limits, her mind registers something different, that you can't be manipulated, that your love doesn't depend on her behavior. That steadiness attracts her more than any compliment, because you show her that your world doesn't collapse when she pulls away. And paradoxically, that makes her want to stay. Coherence is the true language of feminine loyalty. When a man acts consistently from his center, he doesn't need to control her, chase her, or demand fidelity. She offers it freely because she feels she can't lose something that doesn't pressure her, but gives her direction. That dynamic is what separates a balanced relationship from a power struggle. And power, when born from mutual respect, becomes a stable connection. So when you hear that a woman got tired or doesn't feel the same anymore, don't assume she stopped loving you because you didn't try hard enough. Ask yourself when you stopped being coherent, when you started compromising your principles or moving according to her approval, because at that moment, without realizing it, you stopped being the emotional pillar she admired and became a follower of her moods. Feminine loyalty can't be promised, it must be inspired. And it can only be inspired by a man who doesn't seek to be loved, but who loves himself enough not to lose his identity in the relationship. That is true emotional leadership. That is the only kind of love a woman will never betray. When a man lacks a personal frame, his energy becomes scattered and his presence loses weight. He may seem attentive, kind, even loving, but something in his behavior signals weakness. And it's not physical or financial weakness. It's emotional. A woman may feel compassion for that kind of man, but never respect, because respect is born when she senses that he stands on his own, that his well-being doesn't depend on anyone's moods or decisions. A man without a frame moves to the rhythm of her emotions. If she's in a good mood, he smiles. If she pulls away, he panics. He lives in a constant state of reaction, adapting to avoid conflict. But that way of loving ends up producing the opposite effect. She stops admiring him, and when a woman stops admiring you, the relationship begins a countdown. Her desire fades not because she stopped loving you, but because she feels she can control your emotions, and that kills all polarity in the connection. In the previous points, we understood that feminine loyalty comes from coherence, not effort. Now let's go further. Coherence can exist without a frame. A frame is the invisible boundary that defines who you are, what you accept, and what you don't. It's what keeps your dignity intact in the middle of emotion. Without it, you end up being shaped by other people's whims. And when a woman senses she can move you easily, she starts testing you, not out of malice, but instinct. She needs to know where your structure ends, and if she doesn't find it, she disconnects emotionally. Many men think having a frame means being rigid or controlling, but it's the opposite. A frame isn't hardness, it's clarity. It's not about imposing yourself, but about not losing yourself. It's being able to say, I don't agree with that calmly, without fear of losing her. Because every time you give in to something that goes against your values, just to keep the peace, you pay with your self-esteem. And the moment a woman senses that, she stops seeing you as a partner and starts seeing you as an emotional follower. The price of not having a frame is high. You lose respect, attraction, and eventually the relationship. But the worst part isn't that she leaves, it's that you stop recognizing yourself. You lose that inner voice that once told you who you were. Rebuilding your frame means listening to yourself again, setting boundaries again, choosing yourself again. Not as revenge, but as an act of self-love. A man with a frame doesn't fear saying no, nor does he feel guilty for protecting his energy. A man with a frame doesn't shout or impose, he simply stays centered, even in a storm. That calm isn't indifference, it's contained strength. It's the kind of presence a woman respects without needing words, because she knows that even if she walks away, he'll remain the same. And here's the secret. When a man is no longer afraid of losing, a woman feels she's found everything. Stability isn't something you prove, it's something you radiate. Respect isn't demanded, it's inspired by how you carry yourself when no one else validates you. That silent firmness is what separates the men who keep their power from those who give it away for a bit of attention. Now take a moment. If this content helps you understand yourself better and see things more clearly, pause to support me. Subscribe, leave a like, and share your name and country in the comments so we can see where this community is growing from around the world. I read every message, and believe me, every word counts. You can also share your story or a piece of advice from your own experience. That truly makes a difference and sustains the space for reflection among men. With that said, let's get back to the topic. Because understanding the value of having a frame isn't enough, you have to learn how to hold it when the relationship is tested. And that brings us to the next point, where we'll see what keeps a woman connected beyond the initial emotion. When a woman decides to stay, it's not because the relationship is perfect or because everything is easy. She stays because she feels admiration. And that admiration isn't tied to power, beauty, or even material achievements. It's tied to something much simpler and deeper, the feeling that the man beside her keeps growing. Women don't attach to men who adore them, they attach to men who inspire them. And that inspiration is born when they see coherence, direction, and purpose. A woman stays connected to a man who makes her feel alive, and that happens when he keeps his own inner flame burning. It's not about keeping her interested as a game, but about maintaining polarity. Polarity is that subtle tension that arises when she knows he's an independent being, with his own world, his own goals, and an identity that doesn't revolve around her. If she feels his life stops when she's gone, the spark fades. But if she sees his life moving forward, she feels proud to be part of that path. Now that we understand the power of a strong frame, we can see that attraction isn't sustained by words or gestures, but by energy. Women are sensitive to the energy of progress. They can feel when a man gets stuck, dims his light, or stops challenging himself. And that's the point where many relationships die quietly. Because she doesn't disconnect for lack of love, but for lack of inspiration. She doesn't feel like she's losing him. She feels like he's losing himself. A man who grows, evolves, and refuses to settle becomes unpredictable in the right way. Not because he plays with emotions, but because there's always something new to discover in him. And that keeps her alert, engaged, emotionally involved. She doesn't need drama to feel intensity. She needs movement. And that movement comes from the constant growth of the one leading the relationship. Feminine attraction works like a flame. If you overfeed it with desperate gestures, you smother it. But if you give it air, space, and direction, it keeps burning. The air is your independence. The direction is your purpose. And the fire is the energy that arises when she feels she chooses you each day, not because you need her, but because your presence gives her strength. A man with clear goals doesn't fear distance because he knows his worth doesn't depend on being remembered every minute. That kind of confidence is the oxygen of connection. Here's the essential truth. A woman doesn't stay loyal out of obligation, but out of admiration. If she senses that you're focused on your path, that you don't beg for attention, and that you stay calm even when she's emotional, something in her mind shifts. She stops seeing you as just another option and begins to see you as a reference point. You don't need to hold her back because she already feels that losing you would mean losing a mirror of her own growth. The secret lies in maintaining healthy tension, showing interest without becoming dependent, offering affection without losing mystery. Relationships don't fade because love disappears, but because one of the two stops being interesting to themselves. Monotony isn't about routine, it's about lack of evolution. So if you want to keep the connection alive, don't try to reignite the flame with forced gestures. Go back to focusing on yourself, your body, your habits, your direction. A woman can forgive a mistake, but she can't admire a man who gives up on himself. The real commitment isn't to her, it's to yourself. As long as you keep your inner fire burning, the connection will keep breathing. When you let it die, the air runs out. And in that silence she leaves, not because she stopped loving you, but because she stopped recognizing you. With that clear, we can now face the final truth. Feminine loyalty can't be earned or demanded, it must be inspired. And only a man who lives in alignment with his purpose can make a woman choose to stay, even when life gets hard. That's the truth that redefines how we relate to women, and that's where this journey ends. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes that no matter how much he's done, given, or endured, if a woman doesn't feel admiration for him, no bond will survive. And that realization, though painful, is freeing, because it teaches that feminine loyalty can't be bought. It must be inspired. It's not about giving more, but about being more grounded, more self-aware, more in control of yourself. A woman doesn't follow the man who pleases her, but the one who elevates her. Most men look for love by trying to convince. They try to prove they deserve to stay, when in truth, love can't be convinced. It's evoked through example. When a man lives in coherence, he doesn't need speeches. She observes him, feels him, and respects him. And that respect is the purest form of love, because it doesn't come from manipulation or dependency, but from the silent admiration that arises when she sees someone who governs himself. In the previous chapters, we saw that loyalty comes from emotional stability, from having a frame, and from constant growth. But there's something even deeper here. True connection happens when both people grow within the relationship without losing their individuality. She doesn't follow you because you control her. She follows you because, with you, she can expand without losing herself. That's mature love, where both choose each other freely, not out of need. Many men lose that freedom without realizing it. They give up their passions, censor themselves, adapt too much. They believe that giving it all up is a proof of love. But love doesn't ask for renunciation, it asks for presence. It doesn't demand that you lose yourself, but that you show up whole. When a man gives without losing himself, his energy becomes magnetic. When he gives from fear, he becomes invisible. That's why your first commitment must always be to yourself, to your purpose, your self-respect, and your direction. A woman who loves you from that place doesn't need reminders of what you do for her. She feels it in the way you live. She doesn't love your actions. She loves what they represent. She doesn't love your words. She loves the calm with which you back them up. And above all, she doesn't love what you promise. She loves what your silence fulfills, the peace of knowing she doesn't have to beg for stability because you already embody it. A man with that mindset doesn't try to control a woman or fear losing her, because he understands that true loyalty belongs to no one. It's a natural response to the energy of someone who inspires. So every time you feel tempted to convince, remember, you're not here to be chosen, you're here to choose yourself. When you choose yourself firmly, she feels it. And when you sustain it with coherence, her loyalty won't be a promise, it will be a consequence. The truth that redefines your relationship with women is this: women aren't loyal to the man who loves them most, but to the man who loves himself best. The man who doesn't trade his values out of fear, who doesn't lie to please, and who doesn't crumble under doubt. That inner strength is the only thing that withstands time, crisis, and desire. Because a man like that doesn't seek approval, he seeks to protect his peace. And whoever radiates peace inevitably inspires loyalty. That's how the circle closes. What you do for a woman may please her, but who you are when no one's watching is what keeps her connected. It's not about winning her heart, but about not losing yours in the process. And when you understand that, you stop asking why she left and start appreciating the one who stayed. Because in the end, feminine loyalty can't be demanded. It's inspired by living with dignity, purpose, and self-love. When a man understands that women aren't loyal to what he does, but to what he represents, the way he relates to them changes forever. He no longer seeks recognition, fears rejection, or tries to convince. He begins to live with the clarity of knowing that genuine attraction is born from respect, and that respect only lasts when there is coherence. Because it's not about proving you're valuable, but about acting like a man who already knows he is. And when that value is felt, there's no need to explain it. Love stops being a game of strategies and becomes an encounter between two complete people. A man who chooses himself first inspires trust. A woman who feels safe chooses to stay. That's how real connections are built, without begging for attention, without pressure, without fear, only with the certainty that what stays alive isn't desire for what you give, but admiration for who you are. Thank you for staying until the end. If this content helped you see yourself from a new perspective and understand women better, I'm grateful that you're part of this community. Your presence here sustains the purpose of this space, to help men grow through awareness, respect, and emotional dignity. If you haven't yet, I invite you to subscribe, leave a like, and turn on the notification bell so we can keep learning together every week. Your support helps this message reach more men who need it. See you in the next video, with more clarity, more calm, and more purpose.